Guys, today I am looking at Homage to Czerny, Studies in Virtuoso Technique by Gert Jonke. I'm probably mispronouncing this. But yeah, this book was published by Dalkey Archive, and he's an Austrian writer. I picked this book for a couple reasons. I just finished reading Jean Echeno's Piano, and that was a French writer. But before that, I was reading a bunch of Austrian writers, and I was so disappointed by Piano that I wanted to go back to someone from Austria, and I randomly picked this guy. Blake Butler had mentioned geometric regional novel by the same writer, and that book sounded really interesting, but I just couldn't get a copy of it anywhere. My library didn't have it, but they had this book. He writes longer sentences, but they're kind of relaxing, actually. Not difficult at all to read and consume this book. It's like a brother and sister. There's Anton Diabelli and Johanna, and the first person narrator is a composer, alcoholic composer named Fritz. And the brother-sister, they throw this annual summer party, and they wanted to throw the same exact party, and they want to see if the party unfolds exactly the way that it unfolded the previous summer, just as an experiment. The brother is interested in seeing if people are as unimaginative as he thinks they are. So the guests arrive, and it would appear that everybody is doing the same actions and saying the same things as the previous summer, including the narrator who knows about this plan, and he is doubting it. And yet when the brother takes pictures of particular moments, even of the narrator, it's exactly identical to the Polaroids that he snapped the year before. But it really seems to go from like anecdote to anecdote, like as if you're going to a party that has a bunch of interesting people and they're just telling the most interesting things. Like, for instance, the poet has this theory, or actually has this experiment that he wants to demonstrate to everybody, where you take a beer bottle and you pour it out, and you time how long it takes to pour out, but then you do the same thing, except you're drinking it down. So you're pouring it down your esophagus, and the time it takes to pour down your esophagus is faster. They're just sort of contemplating that phenomenon. And it's little strange things such as that. Like there's an anecdote that describes how the city had planned to build these they had a smog problem, so they had these smokestacks going way up into the sky, and they wanted to make sure the smokestacks go up high enough to where the upper winds will carry away the smoke. But in that particular part of the city, the winds just were higher than normal, and they kept building the smokestacks higher and higher, and eventually the smokestacks all crumbled. So it's kind of a little bit ridiculous stuff like that. And then this first story is really like a novella, and it's about maybe 60 or 70% of this book, and it doesn't really resolve what it set out to do. I thought there would be something the setup was so interesting to me. It kind of read like they mentioned Calvino here, but I was thinking about Raymond Roussel and books like Impressions of Africa or Locus Solus, where he kind of has a surreal description of a situation with a lot of imagery, and then he circles around and fills it in, and then you understand the whole point of of that image or situation. And I thought there would be some sort of like explanation of why this experiment was taking place, not really for the sake of explanation, but more as a snapping to of a particular logic. And I thought that's what the setup would lead to, but it really didn't. It just kind of fizzled out. I think the ultimate result of the experiment was that everybody did perform the exact same actions. I think works that deal with party situations really gives the artist an opportunity to skewer that strata of society in one go, and you see that with works like The Exterminating Angel or The Woodcutters. But here the satire is very light, and he seems to have kind of a loving touch with his characters. The second work here is about the same narrator, and here I guess his alcoholism is a little bit more pronounced, but he's visiting a conservatory with his brother, and this is a place where they had studied when they were younger, and they were going to pay a visit to their old professor, but somehow they end up getting locked in the attic of this conservatory, and there's 111 pianos in disrepair, and they just it's just kind of like they're stuck there. They can't get out. They don't have the key to the elevator. And then the brother, who seems to be a technician of sorts or a piano mover, just somebody who's very knowledgeable about pianos. And I think this is where this author's own trade knowledge perhaps comes into play. And I like books that utilize that, like Eugene Martin's, what was it? I reviewed that book a while. In the Blind. It was about locksmithing, and I like books that are, literary works that utilize a person's deep research or perhaps trade knowledge into a particular field, and that you get that sense here with the brother character describing aspects of the piano. For instance, a piano string has the weight of, I don't know what he said, 100 kilograms or something. And there was a situation once where all these pianos were tuned badly, and they all exploded at once, and the entire building exploded, something like that. I guess the funniest situation that was described here is that they couldn't find the professor, but they did find the director of this conservatory, and he described the death of the professor, which happened as a result of a student playing a piece very softly, and the professor wanted to, he needed to lean into the piano close to the strings to hear the notes, and then the piece called for the student to just suddenly play loudly, and then that caused the professor to get startled, and his head hit the stick, and the lid of the piano fell down and beheaded him. Something ridiculous like that. There's another funny situation having to do with piano player. It takes place in the novella, and it's this one odd musician who seems to be able to replicate the sounds of various instruments without actually playing an instrument. But he does play a piano at one point, and he has a piano page turner sitting next to him. And I guess due to like miscommunication or body language misinterpretations, the page turner doesn't turn the page when he needs to, and the piano player is like frustrated by that, and he'll suddenly turn the page himself. I mean, the page turner later will misinterpret the nodding of the piano player's head, and he'll turn the page at the wrong moment. It's just this kind of it's just kind of silly, but this is, I don't know, it's kind of an enjoyable book. I do want to find that book, Geometric Regional Novel, and I'm over here at half price, so I'm going to spend today going to different half prices and just seeing what I can get. Maybe I can pick up something good for $1. But yeah, this is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this again. Just some quick thoughts about this book.